What if someone told you that thousands of years before Socrates ever said, "Know thyself," before Descartes sat alone in a room questioning the nature of reality, before any Western philosopher put a single word on parchment, that there was a civilization in West Africa, Nigeria and Togo, that had already built the most complete philosophical system the world had ever seen? And here's the part that makes this even more extraordinary. Most people alive today have never heard of it. This video is about ancient Yoruba Orisha worship and the profound philosophical tradition known as Isese. This is a stunningly complex system that treats existence as a grand interconnected web. But don't let the word ancient fool you into thinking this is some dusty relic from a forgotten past. What you're about to discover is the startling answer to the question, what am I actually here for? And it's not what you think. Part 1. The living universe. At the foundation of Yoruba Isese philosophy is a concept called Ace. Some translate it as life force. Ace isn't just energy in the scientific sense. It is the power of reality to make things happen. Ace flows through every living creature, every stone, every word spoken with intention. It is, in the most profound sense, the consciousness of the universe made tangible. Here's why this is remarkable. Western science has spent centuries insisting that the universe is a cold, mechanical system of matter bumping into matter, with no inherent intelligence or meaning. And yet, quantum physics is now beginning to whisper what the Yoruba elders were shouting 5,000 years ago, that everything is connected. The observer and the observed are not as separate as we thought. Energy and consciousness may be far more intertwined than our textbooks ever admitted. Ace is the bridge between the spiritual and the physical, and in Yoruba cosmology that bridge is never closed. Part 2, Olodumare, the Orishas and the Divine. Now, the Yoruba Isese tradition doesn't stop at a vague, impersonal cosmic energy, it gets specific. At the apex of this philosophical system sits Olodumare, the supreme creator, the ground of all existence. Think of Olodumare less like a king on a throne and more like the ocean itself, which is present everywhere, sustaining everything, but not the kind of force you approach directly. That's where the Orishas come in, and this is where things get genuinely, staggeringly profound. The Orishas are not gods in the simplistic, superhero sense that popular culture loves to portray them. Philosophically, they are archetypal forces which are concentrated expressions of the same divine energy that runs through everything. Each Orisha embodies a dimension of both the natural world and the human psyche. And here is the part that the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung would have found deeply familiar. The Orishas are, in essence, the universe trying to understand itself through the mirror of human consciousness. Obatala, dressed in white, represents moral uprightness, ethics, clarity, and the awesome responsibility that comes with the power of creation. The Yoruba say that Obatala sculpts the form of human beings before birth, which is their poetic way of saying that character precedes circumstance. A person's inner architecture determines their outer world. So Marcus Aurelius said something similar in his Meditations. The universe is transformation, life is opinion, Obatala would agree. Then there is Esu, who is perhaps the most misunderstood and, honestly, the most human of all the Orishas. Esu stands at the crossroads. He is the deity of duality and of choice. Every day, every human being stands at a crossroads. Every decision is an act of philosophy, whether a person recognizes it or not. Esu doesn't make the choice for anyone. He simply reminds them that refusing to choose is also a choice. And Orunmila is the Orisha of wisdom and destiny, who was present at the beginning of creation and witnessed every soul's chosen path. Orunmila is the keeper of the Ifa, and the Ifa is something so remarkable that it deserves its own moment. Part 3, Ifa is a 5,000-year-old library. Ponder now a living, breathing, thinking library that contains the accumulated philosophical wisdom of thousands of years. This is a library that doesn't just store information, but generates insight, tailored and specific for anyone who consults it. This library is the Ifa literary corpus. The Ifa is composed of 256 Odu, chapters or cosmic paradigms, each containing thousands of verses, myths, proverbs, and ethical prescriptions. UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, recognized the Ifa as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. What makes it genuinely profound is this: it operates not as dogma, but as a living dialogue between the human and the divine. The first Odus of the Ifa are perhaps the most important. The Odu Eji Ogbe talks about alignment and light. Oyeku Meiji speaks of endings and resilience. Iwori Meiji is about perspective and depth, and Ofun Meiji is concerned with creation and law. Here is the little-known piece of information that most people, even those who have heard of Yoruba tradition, completely miss. The Ifa operates on a binary mathematical system. The divination process uses combinations of marks, 2 columns of either single or double lines, that generate 56 distinct patterns. Mathematically, this is a base 2 binary system. The same binary logic that underpins every computer on the planet was embedded in an African spiritual tradition thousands of years before Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz formalized binary mathematics in the 17th century. That is not mythology, it is history. Part 4. Destiny is not a cage. Now here is where many people push back, and the objection is reasonable. If every person chooses their destiny before birth, what the Yoruba call ayanmo, doesn't that remove free will? The Ifa's answer is beautiful, and it changes everything. Ayanmo is not a rigid cage of destiny as it is a roadmap, and a roadmap has a destination, but it also has 1,000 different routes. The soul chooses the destination before birth, including the broad shape of its purpose, its gifts, and its deepest longings. But the road taken, that is entirely the responsibility of the individual. And the vehicle that carries a person down that road is called the Ori. The Ori, inner head or personality soul, is one of the most profound concepts in all of Yoruba philosophy. It is not quite the ego. It is not quite the soul as Christianity defines it. It is the innermost self and is considered a deity. It is the part of a person that knows at the deepest level who they are and what they came here to do. The Yoruba pray to their own Ori before they pray to any Orisha, because the Yoruba understands something deeply human. Before a person can receive guidance from any external force, they must first be aligned with themselves. Aristotle spoke of eudaimonia, which means human flourishing and living in accordance with one's deepest nature. The Yoruba called it having a good head, or orirere, and the conditions for achieving it, good character, or iwa. Part 5. Iwa as currency. The most central and the most deeply human teaching of the entire Yoruba Isese philosophical tradition comes down to this: Iwa. This means character, existence, and being. The Ifa teaches a sentence so simple it almost sounds too obvious, and yet it contains a whole universe. Iwa lewa, character is beauty. Iwa is not wealth, not status, and not even talent, but character. The Ifa teaches that no person is born with a truly bad destiny. What destroys a person's life is not bad luck, nor is it the cruelty of the universe. What destroys a person's life is the slow erosion of a person's character, including impatience, dishonesty, pride, and the refusal to cultivate what the Yoruba call Iwa Pele, which is a gentle, good, and composed character. Here is the relevance of this ancient tradition to modern life, that gnawing feeling of emptiness that shows up even after all the goals have been achieved, including the promotion, the relationship, the house, and the followers has a name in Yoruba tradition, Ibi. Ibi is what happens when a person is living someone else's life instead of their own. The ego wants status, the Ori needs purpose, and those two things do not always align. Part 6. The Babalawo and the Mirror. When a person's life falls apart, such as when the business fails, when the relationship crumbles, or when the terrifying darkness descends and nothing makes sense, the Yoruba tradition offers something remarkable. And no, it's not a priest who tells them what to do or a book that hands them a 10-step solution. Yoruba Isese tradition offers a Babalawo, father of secrets, who consults the Ifa not to predict the future but to diagnose the present and to identify where the person's character has drifted from their destiny. The Babalawo prescribes what the Ifa calls Ibo, or sacrifice, which might be a material offering, a behavioural change, or a ritual act designed to restore the balance between the individual and the forces acting upon them. Part 7. The 7 core virtues. Living a life of alignment requires more than just knowing these concepts. It requires practicing what the Ifa calls the 7 core virtues. These are the tools for survival in a world that feels increasingly out of control. The first virtue is composure. In a world of instant outrage and main character syndrome, the ability to maintain a calm mind under pressure is a rare and marvellous trait. Second, there is respect, and not just for people but for the ancestors and the natural world. We are part of a lineage, a long chain of ace that stretches back to the beginning of time. When we forget our ancestors, we become like a tree with no roots, easily toppled by the first storm of life. Third, patience is another virtue that many find difficult. We want our ripening to happen now, but the Ifa teaches that spiritual and material growth cannot be rushed. Fourth, caution says that impulsivity is the enemy of destiny. Pause before you speak. Fifth is knowledge. Read things that make you uncomfortable. You cannot align with your blueprint if you do not even know what the blueprint says. Sixth is wisdom, and this is the knowledge applied for the good of the community and not for your ego. Seventh is understanding, oye. This is the intuitive, gut-level perception of a situation's spiritual weight. The Ifa teaches epistemological holism, which is the idea that the mind and matter are not separate. Your thoughts affect your physical reality, and your physical actions echo inside the spiritual realm. If you treat your body like a dumpster and your mind like a theatre for vanity, You cannot expect your reality to be anything other than a confusing, muddled disaster. Part 8. The truth that was always waiting. The little-known truth about Orisha worship is that it is fundamentally about human empowerment. It's not about being a slave to a distant god. It's about becoming the master of your own character, so that you can fulfill the contract you've made with the universe. The Yoruba Isese philosophical tradition says, "You are not a passive victim of circumstance. You are a being of profound cosmic significance, carrying a destiny you chose, equipped with an inner guide that knows the way, sustained by a universal energy that never runs out." The Yoruba didn't just build a religion, they built a mirror. It's an astonishing, wondrous, sometimes uncomfortable mirror that forces every person who looks into it to confront the most important question of their existence. Are you living as the person you came here to be? And if the answer is no, if there is a gap between who someone is and who they know at the deepest level they are meant to be, then the tradition's message is that you have work to do. So the rope of life is in your hands. You are a phenomenal force of ace. The crossroads are right in front of you. Esu is watching. Orunmila is waiting. Your Ori is calling. The only question is whether you are willing to sit quietly and listen.